In a world where trauma is real, where people seek out distraction from their internal lives and relationships with others, and where no one is taught healthy self-care, help was needed. In 2019, the mission began. Find a way to help people understand and better their mental health. Seek out ways to explore relationships and how they work. Fight against the stigmas that surround counseling and therapy. And, most importantly,
do all of that so you don't have to be a therapist to understand it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Season 2 of Therapist Theater. I'm your host, Josh Treese. I'm a practicing therapist in Music City, USA, and every week a guest therapist, counselor, or social worker joins me here in the theater to talk about a movie that we've seen and what relationships or mental health issues it highlights. This week, we're welcoming back to the theater Kelly Bourque. Kelly's a certified EFT therapist and supervisor in Franklin, Tennessee. She's passionate about helping individuals in the context of couples work. She's also a leader in the emotionally focused therapy community in Tennessee with a drive to support therapists as they diligently work to learn the beautiful, humanistic, complex, and gentle model called EFT. Thanks so much for downloading today's show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And while you're doing that, help other people find the show by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review for it in the podcast app. Come on, it'll be fun. Assuming we don't get stuck here and no one ever finds us, you starve, I give up, and dim the lights, raise the curtain, and start the previews. Welcome to the theater. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Josh.
It is so good to have you back. You are the second returning guest on the show.
Should I admit that I asked to come back? I invited myself.
I think that's okay. I mean, as soon as you emailed me, I didn't even think twice. I literally just said, yeah, cool, pick a day. We'll make it happen.
I was watching this movie and I was like, I have to talk about this.
You know what? I think when something hits you that hard, I think you're right. It's good to just start talking about it and processing it, and especially if there's ways that you can find that it connects with.
I watched in the theater first, and then we bought the movie, and so I think it was the second time that I'd watched it, and I was with my whole family on the couch. And in the middle of the movie, I emailed you and I notes, and I have my notes sitting beside me.
Oh, I love it. Also, what's it like to watch a movie in a theater? I don't remember.
Oh, we didn't. There's something about having kids that makes you go back to the theater because I'm with you. We didn't. It's like, what's the point? But because it's an activity and it's an adventure, special, we do actually go to the theater quite a bit. The actual theater.
Yeah.
Well, not anymore now,
well, that's what I meant was we're good with going to the theater, but just with social distancing.
Oh yeah.
And you know what's so funny is I think when we were chatting before the show, you brought up Jenny Black, and I think when I was chatting with her, I said something similar, we just haven't seen that many new movies lately. And I had not thought of this, but she was like, well, yeah, because you're watching at least one old movie every week for the show. And I was like,
right.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. Yes. You got to mix it up.
That's true.
Yeah. I love movies so much.
Oh, yeah. And especially ones that hit you in such a way that it stirs something, which sounds like that's what happened with this one for you.
Yes.
But we'll
I think
get.
for a lot of people, Frozen 2 is, I think on Facebook I saw like, you know, you don't have to go to therapy for a month. You can just watch Frozen 2 over and over.
Yeah, but we'll get to Frozen 2 in a second.
Okay.
Normally, when we start the show, I like to start with asking my guests why therapy. But because you've been on the show before, which if you're listening and you want to hear Kelly's first episode, it's on the movie About Time. That's in the, I don't know what you call it, queue, the timeline, the, I don't know. Just search through the podcast app; it'll be there. Um,
Hmm.
so we've already got your why therapy, but I did want to talk to you because of our current climate with the coronavirus and with social distancing, just briefly kind of about like how has it been for you as a person handling it, and how has
Hmm.
it been for you as a, I guess not even just therapist, but as a person who's the head of a group practice. So you have other therapists that work for you. How's it
Right.
been for you in that role handling it as well?
Yeah. So I'll answer for me personally, and I think probably anybody listening would say something similar because I feel like everybody I talk to is sort of saying some version of the same thing. Um, it's in some ways wonderful because there's this forced slowdown and it makes us really grateful for the things that we have, what's important, kind of makes you focus on that. And then it's terrifying. You know, you look at what's happening in the world, all of the unknowns. Um, it just feels really scary. So it's kind of like this emotional roller coaster for me personally. I I'm very aware of how I'm doing and or maybe even like how I'm not feeling and I know that there's something under the surface, just under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this weird time and I think what I hear and this has really been true for me is we can only take this one day at a time. I know that's so
Mm-hmm.
like cliche, but it feels more true now than ever. It's just like, okay, let's just look at this day and do this day
Yeah.
and, ride the emotions of this day and all of that. That's, I mean, does that kind of match maybe some
Yeah.
of, yeah,
But I think, things are cliche because they're true.
right. So,
And what is a cliche if not a very simple way of remembering something in an effort
mhm,
to like jog our memories when maybe our anxiety is high enough to where that trap door between our midbrain where our emotions are and our front brain where our higher reasoning and logic is, when that trap door shuts,
yeah,
cliches, I mean, there's a million cliches inside of recovery, and cliches are there because when that trap door shuts and you can't think straight, if you can recall a cliche that's been boiled down to the simplest form quicker than you can recall like this passage in a book or this five-step process or something like
yeah,
that. And I think 24 hours at a time is something that recovery in 12 steps talks about a lot.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and even taking it down farther, because sometimes 24 hours is too long. Sometimes we got to take it an hour at a time or 30 minutes at a
Yeah,
time.
no, I agree. I agree. And I think we're all sort of figuring out what we need hour by hour, day by day to really make this not just manageable, but um, where we take it as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting with friends. It's so funny. I have talked to more friends in the last than I think I ever have because we're all just feeling this need to be together. Just like,
Yeah.
we're not alone, right? Like you're dealing with the same crazy I'm dealing with. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, lots of FaceTime, lots of um, Marco Polo is maybe my favorite app right now. Do you know about this app?
Oh yeah, I think Leanne was telling me something about it this past week.
Yeah, so it's basically a video chat app. And instead of texting, you just record yourself talking.
But it's
And
video, right?
it's video.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's super easy to use. I love it. So it's just kind of like it's an easy way to stay connected. And you don't have to be like on the phone at the same time but you can see each other's faces. And so you see the expressions and I don't know. You have to get kind of over watching yourself talk,
Mm-hmm.
like get past that. Um, Everybody, when they first do it, they're like, oh, this is awkward. But then once you get past that, because you
Yeah.
don't, there's no feedback. Like you're not
Right.
seeing it, so you're just talking to yourself.
I'm sure that if
Anyway,
people are of the like generation or the type where they do a lot of like Instagram
oh,
stories, I'm
they're
sure
probably
that that's an easy transition, you know.
that's so
Um,
true. That's so true.
but
But go ahead.
I think that what you're saying is right on, and it's something that I've been trying to be intentional about as well. And I think that the other thing is it's really I think I understand and get the temptation to feel like you're in a holding pattern right now. And I think
Yeah.
and I say that because I think that I got stuck there for like a week and a half or 2 weeks where you just kind of go, okay, I'm social distancing, but everything will go back to normal pretty soon.
Right.
And I think, some of that is a hope that it will. And some of
Right.
that is if you're social distancing and you're at the house and you're not out in the world around other people,
Hmm.
it's isolating. And so you don't know what's going on. So
Right.
it,
Right.
I told Leanne, it almost feels like I'm in this weird purgatory kind of like it's not all the way real
Right.
just
Yeah.
because my scenery doesn't change day to day.
Yeah.
I have not put on a pair of like khakis for like I'm going into the office in forever.
Yeah.
I had a joke with some people that were in my cohort from grad school that now because of telehealth we all do sessions what I called senior portrait style where waist up you're formal, waist down you're in basketball shorts.
Listen,
Um,
that part I would like to keep. This is like my best life. The sweatpants every day. Yes, I love it.
yeah, I can't really complain about it.
I know. I
Um,
know.
but I do wear like a button up shirt because I feel like there's got to be I've got to switch modes at least.
Yeah.
Like I can't be you know sitting on the couch, Josh, watching Bob's Burgers and then just start a session like that. I've got
Right.
to kind of put on my professional hat.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
hear what you're saying about the mindset, though, that
yeah.
we have to switch from this some holding pattern to like, no, we're going to be in this for a while, and we need to adjust, and we need to
Hmm.
figure out sort of a new normal. Um, I had supervision. I supervise other therapists, and that was a conversation we were having. It was just hard for this person to navigate how to make decisions um, with like just we have to adjust a lot with telehealth and stuff like that. And I said, for me, just to have less, just to not have to make as many decisions, I've been looking at this at least a month at a time.
Hmm.
And so that's so much for me. That's just like, okay, this month, it's going to be, this is what I can promise to my clients, to myself, that kind of thing. And that kind of helped because I think the week by week thing was just a little bit it's too much. It's too hard.
Yeah, having to always feel like you could potentially have to turn on a dime,
Yeah,
it would
exactly.
just, I think, make it feel like you couldn't get steady. You couldn't get secure.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I mean, we talk about helping our clients feel steady and secure and grounded in the office all the time. I mean, even down to like the way that we decorate our offices, the furniture that we
Yeah,
choose, those
right.
kinds of things. I think that sometimes it's easy to forget that we have to offer those things to ourselves too.
Right. Oh gosh, yes. Well,
Even in
that's
something like our business, like how we, you know, structure, not structure, but like practice our business.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those all of those little decisions end up really impacting us in our daily lives. And to answer your second question, or part B of the question of how is this affecting our group practice, or how are we doing um, as a practice, Red Therapy Group, I really am proud to say that we've really come together, probably more than ever. So we are we have a group chat on Marco Polo, and I have said to my therapist, I want this to be just us being humans together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want us to talk cases or business or anything like that. I just want us to see each other's faces, and, you know, let's let this be like light. I mean, I showed them my garden and talked about how the mint was taking over. And then,
Oh,
um,
nice.
yeah, like Joe Ash, an intern that we have, he showed cooking fried rice. And I mean, it was just
Huh.
that kind of thing has,
It's like you guys have your own network
yes,
with shows
yes.
on it and
Yeah, so we're really coming together, and we're really trying to support each other, um, just so that we can be there for our clients.
mm-hmm.
And I think that that's been really positive. So I'm grateful for that. I feel positive about it. We've also, as everybody has, had to work really quickly when this was first happening and switch to telehealth. So get those informed consents
Mm-hmm.
down, make all of our clients aware, figure out the platform, get all the technical part of it figured out as far as like, how does this work? Everybody's trained. We've watched webinars, we're all ready to go. But that was kind of crazy in the very beginning. And now that that's all in place, and we've been doing it for a bit, and it's been so good. Telehealth itself has been surprisingly effective. Like,
Yeah.
we're believers. It's really, having really good sessions through a screen. I mean, it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm. I was extremely skeptical heading in. And
Yeah,
to
as
go
all
back,
of us.
yeah, to go back to something that you said, working hard to have that stuff figured out on the
Hmm.
front end, that's
Yeah,
not something that you want to be figuring out in your first session with a client. I mean,
right.
you know, the whole goal, I think, of anything environmental, and I guess even to a certain degree with us as a therapist, is to get everything out of the way
Hmm.
to give the client space to really, talk about what they need to talk about. So
Yeah.
technology, and before I, went full time in therapy, which is coming up on a year now.
Hmm.
I was doing technology type stuff, and um, technology. I always said it's incredible and it's life changing until it stops working the way you want it to, and then it ruins everything.
Yeah.
Um, and so to
Yeah.
have that stuff kind of figured out and at least feel like you have your bearings in it,
Right. Yeah.
is going to add to that feeling secure, feeling, safe, feeling steady,
Yeah.
which is going to help,
For everybody.
in the whole
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Yeah.
let's talk about a movie.
Okay.
What movie? I think you already mentioned it, but what movie did you bring for us to talk about today?
Frozen 2. So excited.
Frozen 2. Um, When we were texted yesterday and you were like, you haven't watched it yet? No, I haven't watched it. But listen, not because like I am too good for it or anything like that. It just didn't catch my eye. But I'm not above, watching it. In fact, later on today, we already talked about watching Onward, that latest Pixar one that just came out on Disney Plus. So we're gonna be watching that later. But
I've not heard good reviews about that one.
really,
Yeah, but I didn't see it. My kids and my husband saw it in the theater a while ago,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, they were a little bored.
I
But
think the only thing I know about it is I saw the trailer. That's it. I don't think I've even read anything about it, which is unusual, but I haven't. But Frozen 2, what was it that made you want to talk about this?
well, first I need to just tell you the story about watching it in the theater. So Mimi Mungumba has also been on your show.
She has. Absolutely incredible. Oh, and her movie, talk about another crier. Lion?
Come on. We're therapists. We're like, we love to make people cry and we love to cry ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
This is what we're in business for. But, no, so I watched it in the theater. She's one of my best friends, and I watched it in the theater with her and my whole family. She was sitting next to me, and there is a scene that I'm sure we'll talk about, but it's a really pivotal scene in the movie. And we were both crying, but we looked at each other and we, she and I both just kind of shaked our head like, no, we're going to lose it. This is not good. And then we held hands.
Oh my gosh.
And sobbed through this, like ugly cry.
Wow.
I mean, it was just so much about it, so powerful. And I have cried since in that same scene. I think every time I've watched it, but not like that big, the big one. It was so when I saw it, it was opening day, so I didn't know anything about it. I really went in with really low expectations. Usually when you sequel, it's like, maybe not going to be as good, or like they're just doing it because like they can make more money, blah blah blah. You never think it's going to be this like original, amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away. I really felt like maybe it was even better than Frozen 1. So,
well, I don't want to blaspheme, but it's not like Frozen 1 was like great. I think Frozen 1 was like 3 or 4 great songs that were kind of strung together loosely with what could be generously called a plot. But, entertaining, and God bless the people out there who have little kids who have had it on repeat all the way until part 2 came out. Like, I mean, my best friend has a young daughter who literally, 2 to 3 times every day watched that movie.
Yeah. Yes. Our house too. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure that getting a part 2 was an answer to prayer for some people, because it's just, something different.
Right.
But I am so curious to hear about this scene that has affected you so much. I don't know if you want to go there right now, but what was it that stuck out to you about the movie? Like, what was it that hit you so hard?
The whole movie or the scene?
Well, yes. I mean, all the above.
I saw the first time I watched it, I was just taking it in, and I think it was that one scene. Are we gonna how does this? I can't remember how you do this because I don't want to spoil it.
Oh no! Listen, this is a podcast talking about movies. The name of the movie's in the title. Like, we'll throw up a spoiler warning right now, but if you clicked play on this, you knew what you were getting into. Right. So we do spoilers here. Yeah.
Talk about it, assuming you've seen it. Yeah. So the the scene where Elsa basically she's she's looking for the sixth spirit. Am I remembering this right?
Fifth.
It's the fifth.
Yeah. Because there
Water.
was water, fire, earth, air, and then there was the mysterious extra one.
The fifth, yes, okay. And, you know, it's her. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And, you know, in the music, the lyrics are, I am found, you are the one you've been waiting for all my life. Basically, like yourself, that part, that you. And so, and in the scene, it's like at the crescendo of the music, she's seeing all of these like images or scenes of her life from her past. And you know, Josh, you know I'm a huge attachment person. Like that's sort of the foundation of all of my work. And so when she was looking in her mom's eyes.
Which song? Do you know the name of this song? I'm looking up the lyrics so I can look at them.
This is embarrassing. I should know the name. I know, like.
Is it All Is Found? Is it Into the Unknown? Lost in the Woods? Show Yourself?
Show Yourself. It's Show Yourself.
Okay.
But isn't that? I feel like they kind of run together. But anyways.
Yeah.
Show Yourself. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When the scenes from her life are playing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And she steps on the like the symbol,
center crystal symbol thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then it's just this big. She realizes that she is the fifth spirit. But right before that, she's looking at her mom, and this like memory of her mom or her mom's spirit talking to her. I'm not sure how to talk about it, but that to me was the perfect, most beautiful example of attachment. That is an attachment figure, a secure attachment figure in her life. And through her mom's eyes, she could see herself, the fullness of herself. Like after all of this searching, it was like this, oh, that's right. I am me. I don't know. It was just this really profound, gorgeous moment.
Yeah.
I loved it.
As you're describing it, I kind of had the thought, and I wondered if there was, which, I mean, you know, you talked to me about this because I think that it's possible that both things could be happening, but I kind of thought that maybe there was some differentiation happening. Like maybe where she had been looking in the past towards the mom for all the answers. And then, you know, kind of, I guess, coming into the knowledge of or seeing, you know, herself for who she was, kind of moving into that, oh no, wait, this could be me. It doesn't have to be me looking towards somebody else.
Well, I would call that integration. And so I think that it was like the part of herself that, because I feel like with an attachment, you know, we don't really grow out of the need to rely on others.
Right.
But when we can integrate parts of ourselves, then we actually become more autonomous and can like self-regulate and tune in to ourselves and trust like this is. So yeah, I think what you're saying is right. It was like it's through her mom's eyes that she's seen her own value in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Then to see again, wait a minute, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
I am I am this powerful spirit, you know, and I can trust me. I can see myself in this way, in this beautiful way. Um, yeah. So I feel like I would say I would use the word integration, just integrating um, a part of herself that she had not really accessed.
Yeah. I'm looking at
And
the
it,
lyrics right now, and the last bit of lyrics that it's showing,
uh-huh.
show yourself, step into your power, throw yourself into something new. You are the one
Ooh,
you've been waiting for all your life. Show yourself.
yes.
Um, it kind of reminds me of uh, some reparenting exercises that I've had to do with clients where, you know, and this would be looking at, a insecure attachment that they
Mm-hmm.
had with their primary attachment figures, but
Yeah. Yeah.
carrying this wound into adulthood and constantly looking back or wishing for that affirmation or that affection or that
Right.
doting or whatever it is to come from that attachment figure. But, um, I'll never forget one of my therapists said to me one time, there's some needs that are bound to certain times of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have a need in our childhood that, if it's not met, we may continue to seek to have it met in adulthood, but it's
Mm-hmm.
impossible to have a childhood need met in adulthood. So the work becomes grieving the
Right.
loss, grieving that we never had that need met, and better identifying our adult needs and seeking to get those met. But, in those reparenting things, it's like, recognizing what was it that I longed for as a kid.
Yeah.
Can I recognize that? And then can I offer that to myself now?
Right. Right. That we do that work in EFIT, emotionally focused individual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing the adult part into a scene in childhood, and yeah, and kind of like what you're saying, what, you know, if you looked in the eyes of this 5 year old,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? What is this this person right here, right now, this adult self right in front of me that has grown so much and has come so far? What would you give him or her? What would you say? You know, what is it, or just what even is it like? And that kind of experience in the moment, it's exactly like you're saying. It's a re-parenting, and it does really, I think, appropriately, grief does happen because you can't actually go back, right?
Right.
So there is a loss, but and it's to integrate that little boy, little girl part into your present self. I think that's huge work, really
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Yeah. And I think that, to speak back to attachment that you were talking about earlier, I think that's where the therapeutic relationship becomes so important because I
Right?
think it's,
Or surrogate attachment figures.
yeah. And I was going to say, that helps the client feel safe enough to enter into that kind of work
Yeah, totally.
because that is, it's tough to think of work that's more vulnerable than that, more scary than that.
Right.
Because that's like the very foundations of who you are as a person is your
Yeah,
relationship with your parents, which
yeah,
forms your relationship with yourself. And so if you
right.
start picking at that thread,
Yeah,
and you don't have somebody there with you that can
yeah,
say, I'm here, I'm not going
yeah.
anywhere, we're in
Right,
this
right.
together, it's either too scary to do or,
I
it
think it's,
just,
I would argue it's impossible to
yeah,
not do it without a, um, you know, have you heard of Circle Security? Their mantra, bigger, stronger, wiser, kind.
no.
Um,
Mm-mm.
I feel like that's our posture as therapists, bigger, stronger, wiser, kind. You can't do it without a present other.
Yeah.
And yeah, that relationship is kind of like the power that, I love what you're saying, that enables you to risk in that way and go to that vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
It's
going
like
back,
a secure base.
it is that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. It's not one you have to think about. It's just
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think you and I could see that in our work with our clients, that we have to establish that before we really ask our clients to go there. We have to really know, they like a felt sense that our clients trust us, and that we can, that relationship is solid. So yeah, going back to Elsa, I that secure base with her mom allowed her to step into her power, which I think is vulnerable for her,
Mm-hmm.
because her power has always been dangerous. And now she's
Huh.
seeing it even more so than in Frozen 1 as um, beautiful, necessary. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that was before we started watching the movie. I told Leanne, hey, I got a lot of questions about Frozen 1 that weren't answered, and she
uh-huh.
was like, "Oh boy, here we go. All right, what do you got? What do you got?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Well, first off, Elsa has these ice powers, and it's never explained how she got them, why she has them, why is she the only person in the world with a superpower, this kind of thing." And this movie really, I mean, it does answer that, but I think
Yeah.
that something that I had not, which I guess this is the whole purpose of the Let It Go song. Something that I had not really like honed in on was, you know, because she's the only one and because naturally everybody else is afraid of it,
Mhm.
she isolated because of her being
Yes.
different. And so she was kind of taught your the ways that you're different uh, are to be hidden, are to be looked down upon, are
Yeah.
to be used to make you separate. And I think that there was a progression from the first movie to this one. Like she was
Yeah.
uh, a little more comfortable with herself. She wasn't like hiding as much anymore and that kind
Right.
of thing. But I think you're right. Like this was a moment where she stepped into the fullness of herself.
Yes. And I think so. I wrote this down in my notes when I was watching it. It dawned on me that Frozen 1 was like behavior change for Elsa,
First
right?
order. Yeah.
She 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 was there, like she was in community and relationship. She wasn't isolating anymore, but there was this deep kind of pull, and she was afraid of it at first, and so at that moment to me was this true integration. And that's what we do in therapy. you
Mm-hmm.
know the first, I think most models have something like this, that there's a deconstruction in the beginning, and so it ends up being a behavioral shift, and that's positive, and it gives a lot of relief, and people feel really good about that. But until you do that deeper work, that's what makes lasting change, and that's where it's like this full revision or resolve. And so I think that's what that moment is for me watching
Huh.
it.
And even, you saying that stuff, it makes me realize that, we talked about a progression from the first movie to this one.
Uh-huh.
She, in the first movie, and I guess in the in between time between the two,
Hmm.
stopped isolating, got more
Right.
in touch with her past, and certainly more in touch with her present, Anna,
Yeah.
Olaf. Oh gosh, the guy's name. What's the guy's name? Shoot, Kristoff? Is that a name? Is
Yeah.
that it?
Chris,
Okay. Um, and
Sven is the reindeer, right? Kristoff is.
yes, of course,
Yeah.
Finn. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, by kind of leaning into the attachments with those, I
Yeah.
would argue that those gave her the strength, to do
Yeah.
that work. You know, and
Yeah.
so it's kind of like let's say that in the middle of the first movie that, you know, she began to hear those voices and she went to that location in the cave or whatnot. Like, she may not have been able to do that acceptance and that integration and that work then,
Right. Yeah.
because she didn't have those, you know, securities,
Yeah.
those relationships that she has now. And so I think what you're saying is so true. It's like, and it's very similar to like 12 steps. You know, there are 12 steps for a reason, and they're in the order that they're in for a reason, because one is going to help you do two. Two is going to help you do three. And so if you look at the 12 steps and you go, I could never do a step 9 of making amends. Well, you're
Uh-huh.
right. You couldn't, because you haven't done 1 through 8.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think in her case, like, she needed to go through this journey of building these relationships, of letting her walls down, of being
Yeah.
brave enough to be vulnerable with the people that she cared about. And that allowed her to step into the fullness of herself.
Yes. Yes. It's so beautiful. And I love the empowerment there, just I don't know, there's something about feeling so inspiring. Just what used to be dangerous is now so, she just like embraced and really stepped into it. And then that, and even like, Mimi and I were talking about this, even how she chose to live in this other land
Mm-hmm.
and still stay, she was still really connected to her family, but she chose, like, that was more of where she needed to be and fit who she really is. That kind of a bold move, I think, just shows a really um, confident, but like, I know who I am and I know what I need, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
afraid that that's gonna, you know, cause any rupture in relationship. Like, she just felt so supported to that point, and just really stepped into it in a big way.
Yeah. But I think I would understand it. I mean, I don't think fear in that case would be unwarranted. You know, I mean, I think
Uh-huh.
fear and sadness, because the relationship that she had grown to treasure with her sister is going to change. She's not
Right.
in the same building as her all the time. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think sadness in that case would be, you know, appropriate. I think fear would be appropriate, but, you know, I mean, the gift of fear is wisdom and faith. So, I mean, just to have the faith that my sister and I care so much about each other that we're both going to work to stay connected, you
Yeah.
know?
And this relationship, going back to secure attachment, and that's not one person, right? That's a bond
Right, right.
that carries people through transitions like that. And so, I mean, that makes me think of what the whole world is going through right now. That it is so beautiful to watch people just tap into those bonds that they already had to really carry us through this time. I mean, I just feel like it's very moving and it's interesting. Everybody's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and what's even I don't want to say stranger, but I guess maybe refreshing because it's different, is it's
Yeah.
not just everybody doing it, but it's everybody recognizing it as
Right.
something that's beneficial and
Yeah.
promoting it and encouraging it. It's like
Yeah.
this value of connectedness has risen even
Yeah.
higher on our priority scale, you know,
Yeah.
to the
It's
point that you see corporations
yeah.
like, you know, I got a text one day from Verizon this past week saying, "Hey, 15 gigabytes in mobile hotspot data, no charge. You don't have to do anything. Here it is." You know,
Mm-hmm.
so you can stay connected with people. And I'm like, "What? This
Oh, it's
giant
showing up
money making machine is being nice, huh?"
velocity. Yes, it's showing up as compassion, as patience. I mean, it's just, yeah, yeah, it's rising to the surface in a really big way. Um, so it is super cool. I didn't mean to take us away from the movie, but it just made me think about that.
Well, I
That
think that that's a theme in the movie because, I mean, certainly in the first one, you had this separation and isolation between Anna and Elsa.
yeah,
And as that first movie progressed, you saw them, reuniting, helping each other, getting closer. And then I think that in this movie, that bond is still there, but it's like a refining of it because you see both of them kind of figuring out who am I as an individual
hmm
uh, in the context of this bond.
yeah,
And it reminds me of so I did another interview with a guest yesterday about the movie Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet, and there's
yeah,
a line in that movie that says, best friends don't have to have the same dream. And so I think it's this act of differentiation that even though we love each other, we care for each other, we
mhm,
are in each other's lives,
yeah,
it's okay if we're different. And I see
yeah,
the two of them wrestling with that in this
right,
and wrestling
right,
with how do we navigate becoming more of who we each are while at the
right,
same time maintaining our relationship,
right.
which is not always easy.
It's not.
Rarely is
And
it easy.
yeah, I think it reminds me of something that Sue Johnson said on a podcast. I laughed out loud when she said it, but she said, nobody's compatible. That's not a thing. For us to be perfectly compatible, like the same person, liking the same things, that kind of thing, it's really about the bond. And then in the context of a strong bond, your differences aren't threatening. Like, it's okay
Mm-hmm.
because it's more about, um, are we here for each other? Do we, you know, matter in this relationship? Are we going to get those deep emotional needs met? Um, and we can handle the fears that come up, because this is so secure. But yeah, a secure bond makes for really individual, autonomous people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, like, in the context and the presence of a secure bond, what ends up happening is you have the freedom and support to become more of who you are.
Yes. Oh,
Like it adds to that. So it's
yeah,
and I remember in the past, like pre-grad school and stuff, hearing, well, if you're in a relationship, you have to give things up. You have
uh,
to be willing to sacrifice parts of yourself and blah blah blah, which maybe that's true, but I don't think that it is a like killing part of yourself. I think
yeah,
that with a secure
and
bond, what actually happens is you feel the freedom to lean into those things more because you
yeah,
know that the stakes aren't, well, if I do this, the person I love, the person I'm in a relationship with is going to leave.
right, right, yeah. I agree with you. I think that when you were talking about it makes you like step into who you really are even more and be go ahead and being different. It makes me think about the kind of risks that people and like responsible, but like just risking being yourself. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
risk, and you can make that kind of risk in the context of love, which is a secure bond.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I see Elsa doing that, and I think because she is so different from everybody, stands out. I think that there's a lesson that we can learn in that we really all have that gorgeous, unique specialness about us, and it's about stepping into it and risking being or finding that part of yourself, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
um, not like anybody else. It's It's beautifully you. I mean, I'm sounding so cliche right now, but it's really, this movie gets me sappy.
Yeah. Um, Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Since you watched it with your kids,
Yeah.
I mean, it obviously sounds like this movie, affected you as an individual. Was there any like, what's it like processing that the message of this movie and attachment and integration as a parent? Like you're watching this with your kids, and of course you want these things for your kids.
Yeah.
Like how does that hit you as a parent?
So that's funny because when I walked out of the theater, I heard other adults saying, that was deep. Boy, that was dark. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just didn't get it. You didn't get it. And I don't think that the kids got it and on this level, nor should they. Like, I think that they thought it was a really good movie. They loved it. Um, it is super funny. And it's the music. I think the music's great, all of that. I don't, and I have one child in particular that is a very deep, profound thinker. And if I sat down with her, she could hang in this conversation, like for a bit. Like she would, she would say something about, you know, love or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think, that's what I love about a lot of these movies that the they're so smart and that they are appealing to both kids and adults. So, for me, there's so much about it. I mean, even in the humor, right? Like some of the kids, like the song with the '80s throwback.
Oh my gosh. That
That was
was incredible.
awesome. But like no, my kids that are born in 2009 and up, uh, they have no like they don't know why that's hilarious,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that was like, oh, thank you for that. That was so
When that song started, I think I was looking down because maybe we were eating or something, and I was like, "This sounds like Chicago." And then I like looked up and I started seeing them doing like there's Christoph in the background, but then the shot of his face appears on the side of the screen with him still in the background. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like early, MTV or something."
yes, it's so awesome. It was so great. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think with my kids, we are probably doing more modeling than active conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they, I don't know, and having opportunities. But yeah, this movie wasn't necessarily one of those where they asked deep questions. It was just like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, so funny. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, was there any part of you as you were processing the movie that maybe reflected on raising the kids and things that you wanted for them that caused you to say, I should really like take this action or even if it's in the
right.
future?
I hadn't thought about it till just now, but as you're asking the question, I think that, um, as a parent, I'm always trying to really help them. See, it's an interesting thing because they are literally looking at you all the time
Mm-hmm.
for who am I? Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this good? Is this bad? Is this appropriate? I mean, like literally looking at you. They'll say something, right, that's funny and then look at you like, is that funny? Or they'll fall down and then look at you like, am I hurt?
Oh, yeah. I've
Am-
heard so many parents say, when your kid falls, they always have this pause where they're
yes.
looking to you to see if you freak out, then they
Yeah.
freak out. But if you just keep a calm demeanor, they ride
Yes.
that train.
Yeah. So all of that is very appropriate. It's very appropriate for our kids to look at us for how to be and who they are. But in the context of a family, something that I've been really aware of that I have to be really careful about is as I talk to them about what I love about them or what's unique about them, I don't want that to become rigid. Does that make sense? Like, I want there to be room for fluidity, and but it's hard because, and I think in anybody who's been in a family system can understand that, like, you grow up and it's like, oh, I am the funny one, or I am the studious one, or whatever. And parents are well intended when they talk about that because they're wanting you to to see the value that you have, right? Because they're naturally looking to you, and so you want to give that to them. Like, I just see you as so creative. You're so creative. I just love how you know, write that story or draw that picture. But it's been interesting because even in the positive ways that I and my husband encourage our kids, we're very aware that we need to have space and room for them to explore beyond what's maybe standing out. So I think that does kind of connect with um, Elsa, right? Because she's always been like this one way in her context, but for her to explore beyond that, I think that takes a bit more than just like you are this kind of way on the surface. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that answers your question.
I don't know if it's like a total one for one fit, but it kind of reminds me of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Like especially in the way that you were talking about, almost like the creative kid and the studious kid. It's almost like assigning roles,
right.
and really you're trying to affirm something, but you're
Yeah,
also like, I don't know, imbuing in them, this is how the version of you that I approve of should be,
hmm,
and I know that I was listening to something that Adam Grant, maybe it was his podcast or something, but he was talking about kind of, instead of affirming something along the lines of like, oh, you got an A, you're so smart, you know
hmm,
that's the fixed mindset kind of thing, versus the wow, you got an A, I'm so proud of you for working so hard.
right, right, right.
um just kind of imbuing this sense in them of you can be and do anything if you work
Yeah,
hard at it,
yeah,
versus you are naturally smart, which I think, he went on to say, so when that kid who's been told that they're smart, if they begin to struggle in school and they're not getting those A's,
hmm,
that's going to cause some foundations to shake loose in them that they don't have the framework to process and deal with,
yeah.
you know. And so it may
And
cause shame, they may
yeah,
hide it and all of
yeah.
that.
I think it goes back to having that relationship where you could step out and explore and be supported in it. So whether it's like going deeper into what feels like is standing out, kind of like Elsa,
Mm-hmm.
or totally changing course and finding a new part of yourself, um, that's completely foreign or just not tapped into at all. But if you have that relationship, so that I think that's what I'm aware of, that I want to make sure that my kids feel safe enough to break the mold a bit in our family and therefore in the world, you know?
Yeah. Even if it's your family mold. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's where it starts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know. This is good. This is making me think. I'll have to tell my husband about
um, and I think that like that's scary and that's tricky a little bit, because while you want to give them the freedom and the security to explore who they are, you also want to instill upon them like principles and values
Right.
that you believe will serve them. And I know that, like, while like Leanne and I don't have kids, I know that's pretty tricky because what's the tightrope act? What's the balance between I want to teach you how to think and not what to think? Right? I
Yeah.
want to instill in you principles and values, but I want to give you freedom to also be your own person. And
Yeah.
I know that sometimes, I'm saying sometimes as a person who's not a parent, you might say all the time, but I know that like it's pretty scary because, well, what if I work to instill these things in my kid and then they reject them? It's going to feel like they're rejecting me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. My oldest is 11.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she is kind of getting into that preteen, you know, but she's doing it in her way, which is really interesting. But I think something that I was going to point out as you were talking, I think where therapists that are parents can get really caught up is we have these amazing principles
Mm-hmm.
and concepts and, like you were talking about mindset versus growth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you said it? Fixed mindsets versus
Fix.
growth,
Yeah.
fixed versus growth. Um, we can have all of these principles and we can say the right things. Like we can say it. Like you're not. Wow, you worked so hard. That's amazing. Instead of saying you're so smart, we can say those things. Unless it is like authentically, genuinely in us,
Mm.
I don't really think it makes. I think it becomes another like
Platitude. It's empty.
something. And kids, I'll tell you this, they can sniff right through that. Like they can smell it a mile away. So it's that authentic.
They got a good
Uh,
BS meter, so they can pick up on
yeah,
if you're snowballing them or not.
right, right.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I mean that's something that I fall back on a lot is I just try to instead of trying to figure out what to do or how to think or how all of that, I really try to tap into do I feel connected with my kids? Because if I
Yeah.
connected with them like genuinely, then they probably feel connected with me. Usually it's a two-way street. Um, and if we have that connection, then I can mess up a bit and they can mess up a bit and we can have a relationship and navigate this. Um, that gives me so much freedom and it's just because I mean, I think as a therapist, you can really, I mean, we've read all the books, we know all the research, all that kind of stuff. It can get really overwhelming.
Yeah. 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 Um, I think one of my favorite things about secure attachment is grace.
Yeah, so
And
beautiful.
I think that, you know, one of the things that is a partner of that in a secure relationship, especially between a parent and a child, is humility.
Hmm.
To know that even if as a parent you do mess up,
Right, of
that,
course.
you have that relational base that your kids are going to love you, but to have the
Mhm.
humility to go to them and say, hey, mom or dad messed up and I need to say I'm sorry.
Right.
I think it's going to reinforce that secure bond, that secure attachment, and it's going to teach them that uh, approval and love is not dependent upon perfection.
Right, right.
You
And
know,
it shows, it models for them what it is if they have kids. This isn't about being perfect or getting it right or never yelling or it's all about that repair,
mm-hmm.
right? That
Yeah,
does take humility. It absolutely does. It takes humility and trust,
yeah.
you know.
And we
We
saw
mess
that in the movie too, because at certain points where Elsa and Anna were encountering fear or uncertainty, they comforted each other in the way that their mom comforted them.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Yes. I remember that part. That was really good too.
Like the
Yeah.
holding and the singing and the stroking of the nose with the finger.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
is there anything else in the movie that stands out to you?
Oh, so many things. Let me look. Oh, and I want to be careful with time, so I won't go too much into all of this. But I thought that the water spirit, when Elsa was harnessing the horse,
Mm-hmm.
that to me was pretty symbolic. It felt like she was harnessing a part of herself, which I think that that's true about the spirits, that they kind of, she's in the center. So I think that it's probably a lot of IFS you could pull in here, but um, I don't know if you noticed. I
Oh,
didn't
I
notice
had
this
not
until,
thought about that.
yeah, yeah. I think it's got to be, or I mean, if it you could make an argument for it anyways, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed this. I mean, I didn't notice it until maybe the second or third watch, that when she's trying to harness the horse underwater, he has a actual harness on him in the beginning. Like she has, when she finally they kind of come together. But then by the time she gets to the shore, he doesn't have anything on. He's
I didn't, but that is,
not
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
I don't think that that's like just coincidence. I think that
yeah,
there's this trust and freedom and kind of being in sync. Um, yeah, I just thought that was really cool, really really cool. And then that was her, and as the movie went on, there was a beautiful relationship between her and the water spirit. So
yeah, yeah. I think that there is a certain component of like, and I think it's symbolized in that horse. Strength
yeah.
and wildness.
Yes, yeah.
And not wildness like chaos and out of controlness, but wildness in almost like a reverence for that
Hmm.
strength.
Yeah.
I'm going to invoke Glennon Doyle. It's untamed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
yeah.
And what's interesting is like getting that harness on it at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
It kind of reminds me of some of the talks I've had with my clients lately. At the beginning of somebody's journey in recovery, you need more structure.
Right, exactly.
And then as you proceed, it's not that you toss out all the principles that you've learned, but
Hmm.
it's that maybe you learn how to apply them in a less rigid way.
And I think that's true for the development of a therapist too. I think that
Oh, yes. Yeah,
yeah.
Dr. Sarah Hopkins can talk to you about my struggle with that because my struggle was real.
Well, it's a it's a good struggle though, right? Because
Mhm.
it has to happen. We have to find our bearings in some way. And so in the beginning, structure is necessary, whether that's like um, I don't know, having really trying to hone in on a model of therapy, um, or even just the cadence of your sessions, or just all of that. Like we need some kind of structure so that we can bring ourselves into whatever model we're using, and then we can be much more creative and flexible and fluid, and it's and kind of like um, changing the rules a little bit, or
Mhm.
just making different choice points. But that comes after you have a whole lot of comfort and security in the model itself. So I think that, yeah, the structure, I love that analogy, with the horse and with any kind of process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much like jazz. Like when I first started taking guitar lessons, my teacher was this guy that was in his mid 60s and had been a jazz musician since he was like literally 10.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, it was drilling scales into me, like drilling and drilling and drilling, and
Right.
all the major
Right.
keys and minor keys. And then we started learning these different kinds of scales that started incorporating sevenths and fifths and minors and these kinds of things. He would start by saying, all right, so this is this major scale, but we're taking a note from this other scale and putting it in. So it was like you had to learn the rules in order to learn how to bend them to where they'd
Yes.
work. And it's not
Yes.
that you're looking to cheat, but what you're looking at is, I think it goes back to that safety and security thing.
Yeah.
It's practicing it enough to where this is the land that I can dance in safely and securely,
Mm-hmm.
and these are little hidden paths. These are areas of the land that I can go and I can take people,
Right.
and be creative. But I can only do that because I've done it, because I know it well enough.
Yes. I've been here before.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to ask you this. Tell me something and I asked you this the last time, we had you on the show, but I
Yeah.
think this happens in literally every session that we have as therapists. But tell me something that your clients have taught you.
Hmm. Oh, I'm going to answer this on the spot. I haven't thought about this lately. I mean, of course, you're right. They always teach you, always, always, always. I think maybe every session, my clients are teaching me, and I'm so grateful for that. Um, I think in this landscape with what we're dealing with COVID-19, I think my clients are really teaching me about sort of the human power of resiliency, how everybody has that. Um, and I feel almost it's like there's an appropriateness to my position with them that I am leading, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm even more so lately. I feel like I'm just a tiny step ahead of them because I feel so human with them that we're actually going through the same thing at the same time. And I think this is the most unique time in the whole world. But specifically for therapists and clients, there's been a lot of funny memes out there about like there's one where the client is on the couch and the therapist is laying right next to them. Like, me too. Let's just, so of course I'm not going to be inappropriate and like self disclose um, too much or inappropriately with my client. But there's this humanness and resiliency that when I'm watching them just do this, despite wherever they are in their journey, and it's just really inspiring. So I don't know, I think it's given me a lot of faith um, in like our humanity.
Yeah. I mean, something similar is, in the sessions that I've had in the past few weeks, I've had clients that have asked me, like, tell me how you're doing. And I think you're
Yeah.
right. Like, I'm mindful that I don't want to disclose too much, but I
Right.
think that, there's a question behind the question there. And
Mm-hmm.
what they're actually, looking for is connection. So,
Yes.
like, I don't have to talk about all the struggles that I've had, but I think by saying, this has been really challenging for me too, I think
Right.
that's helping them realize, oh, I'm not like uniquely broken. I
Right.
I am a
I,
person and all
exactly.
other people are struggling with this too,
Yes. Yeah. No, and
which
I
is
think the therapist community is coming together too in a bigger way than I've ever seen. Um, there's like, we're really helping each other out. And yeah, yeah,
Thank
that
goodness.
connection, that me too, that we're in this together, like for real.
Yeah. Tell me something that you're doing right now to take care of yourself.
So I adore my kids, and they are truly life giving. Um, and there's a temptation because my husband and I are both working from home, and we're, before, when the kids were in, my youngest is in 5-day preschool, and then I've got the two older are in elementary school. So we had a really great rhythm going where we were both working while they were in school,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would be together in the evenings and work together as a family, and it was just like blissful, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
this happens, all that falls apart, and now we're having to figure out how we can both keep working, but we have to tag team, and so it's just like there's not this there's not this bandwidth that we used to have. So I guess a temptation would be that when I'm with the kids, to maybe check out or be on my phone or something like that. But what I've tried to, and I'm not, not perfect at this, and I do still check out and all of that. But when I actually put my phone down and am just really with them, it actually, it like is so life giving. Like yesterday, we were having this silly little game. I was really just trying to buy time until my husband was done with a work meeting, and we were going to do dinner together. So we were on the couch, and I was doing trivia. So I was asking them, and this stuff just you can't make this stuff up, right? It just comes up. But I was like, okay, I was just coming up with these trivia questions for each kid, and if they got it right. I'm trying to remember if they got it wrong. No, if they got it right, they got to be tickled. They love to be tickled.
They got
And
it
so
right. They got to get tickled. That's torture for me.
they love to be tickled. So they would get it wrong on purpose. That's why I did that. Because I didn't want them to like be silly and like come up with the wrong answer just so they could get tickled. I really wanted them to like tell me about, why we only see the sun during the daytime. Like I
Mm-hmm.
needed them, I needed to be educational. So, but it was so precious. My 5-year-old, I would, of course, give him like easier questions. And whatever he said, he would like light up and like put his whole body up toward me, like, is it gonna happen? Am I gonna get?
Joyous expectation.
And I mean, I'm telling you that 5 minutes, uh, like I'm still writing on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a gift, and if I can be intentional and have those moments, they really help me. And I mean, I don't want people to hear this and think, oh my gosh, like I need to be doing that. No, I mean, it's not all like that. There's so much, the kids are fighting or they're bored or
Mm-hmm.
it's like the house is a mess, all of that. Like we have a real life house.
Yeah. But what I
But
hear you like zoning in on is intention and presence.
hmm
So, like deciding and following through on what you want to do. And then
yeah,
while you're doing it, being truly present. And I think that, and I've said this before, like, I think that when you're with another person who has the ability or who has made the choice to be truly present with you, you always
hmm
walk away feeling better. You always walk away feeling more connected, more encouraged because you can sense that. You can sense that when somebody's really with you because it's connection.
yeah, it's like medicine. It really is. Um, like cleansing almost.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's foundational to secure attachment. So, like, as you're talking about that, this is something you practice with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that feeds your kids, but I also hear you saying how it feeds you.
Yes, and
And
that's my whole point. That's my whole point. That I'm not I, of course, I want to give that to them, but my whole goal there is that I need to be connected with myself and with whoever's in front of me. And
yeah,
so, for me, it really is for me.
nice.
Yeah.
Um, so if somebody was listening to the show today and they feel like they could really connect with you and they would love to see you as a client, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So, Red Therapy Group, red like the color, redtherapygroup.com is where you would need to go. And on that, you'll find myself and then three other contract therapists. And right now, all of us are doing telehealth. And so, really, if you're anywhere in Tennessee, you can get services from us. So I think this is kind of an exciting time for clients, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's more accessibility than ever. We also have our website has certain hours. Each therapist holds certain like office hours, but you can assume that there's a lot of flexibility there. And so we're really trying to meet the needs of our clients. Some of our clients are couples and they would rather have a session maybe after the kids are in bed. So where 8 o'clock at night session wouldn't be something that maybe we would offer, we do now. So there's a lot of just flexibility and um, more access, I think, than normal. And then on the site, you'll see we offer different intensives. Those are more often than not in person. And so that's something that you can look forward to when this is all over.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, lots of good information on there.
Yeah, I'm even seeing on your site because I'm looking at right now. You got a baby moon intensive, which is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
unique. Like I've not kind of heard about something like that before.
yeah. No, it's super exciting. It's yeah. So people go on. You've heard of that, right? Baby
Oh
boom,
yeah,
like
oh yeah.
go on a vacation before usually the first baby. It's a little harder to do it with the second and third, but um, yeah. I mean, I actually this came from somebody requested it. And I thought, wow, that is brilliant. Somebody said, we really want to get away, but while we do, we want to be a little bit more intentional and really kind of reconnect and just make sure that we're on the same page before this baby comes.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to make it a thing because I thought yeah, so it came from a client, the idea.
Nice. That's incredible.
I know.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much again. And you mentioned at the front end that you asked to come back on. Please ask anytime that you want to come back on. You're just one of my favorite people to talk to.
Well, I
And
really, really enjoy our time together, and I love what you're doing. I want to support you in any way that I can, and yeah, I just think it's super fun, and I love that it makes all of this clinical talk a bit more accessible. It's really fun, Josh. It's a great idea.
well, Kelly, thank you so much. I just appreciate you endlessly.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Hey, everybody. I have debated recently whether or not I want to change how I start everything on the podcast from hey, which is something I've said forever, to hey, all you cool cats and kittens. And if you don't get that and you haven't engaged with The Tiger King on Netflix yet, definitely an entertaining watch. Although I was watching, let's see, a YouTube video came up yesterday on the, I think Screen Rant channel. They do honest trailers, and they had a line in the trailer that has left me a little bit shook and thinking twice about how much I enjoyed watching Tiger King. And they said in the trailer something along the lines of like, you know, there's so many sensational people in it that we forget that we're watching a bunch of broken people. And I think that, you know, that's always a reminder when it comes to documentaries and such, is that no matter how entertained we are by it, that the people within it are real. And sometimes the way that we talk about it is different than if we were talking to those subjects or talking with them, you know, as if they were people in our real lives. But still, it's something interesting, and it's something interesting that I've enjoyed talking about, and I could even see doing an episode on it. So moving on from that, I was thinking as I was editing this week's episode that I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to hear from you. How are you doing? How are you coping with social distancing? And is there anything that you would like to hear us talk about on the show? You can send in those thoughts to therapisttheater@gmail.com or hit me up on any of the socials that we're on. But drop me a line. Say, hey, Josh. Hey, Josh. Let me know how you're doing. How are you coping? And is there anything that you want to hear on the show? Thanks so much for joining me this week in the theater. I'll make sure I save a seat for you and a friend next week. Let's raise the lights, lower the curtain, and say that for this week, the theater is closed.